Go ahead.
Thanks very much. So we're, where are we? Hello. You are at the Sunshine Coast Policing and Public Safety Committee for Thursday, October 21st, 2021. I'll begin with a land acknowledgement. We welcome everyone here and thank you for being here. And I would like to acknowledge that we are within the territory of the Seashelt and the Squamish First Nations. So just bear with me while I organize here. Got all our peoples. And if it's all right with people, we'll just use first names. Is that all right with people for this meeting? Or okay, got thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first item of business is we have an agenda before us. There's 3 items there. So we'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda unless there's something else that people would like to add. Okay, where am I looking here? Everywhere.
Stay with the computer.
Easiest. Okay, if you say so, Elton, thanks. Okay, so we have a motion for adopting the agenda. Thank you, and all those in favor? Okay, let's go. Back and forth. Okay, so the first item for business is we're accepting the minutes for receipt. Do we even need a motion for receipt? Do we need a motion for receipt? Okay, let's do a motion for receipt of the minutes. Yes and yes. Thank you. And all those in favor of the minutes? Thank you very much. No delegations or presentations. We have a report, which is kind of the meat of this discussion. I don't think we have anyone introducing it, or unless, shall I just introduce it, or anyone from staff want to introduce this? It was written by Dean McKinley. We should receive it, okay. We'll have a motion to receive the report. Thank you, and all those in favor. Terrific, I love this. Okay, so where to go? So I guess I'll introduce this report. So this meeting is essentially to bring forth the recommendation that has come, that we're in the process, the board is in the process of winding up this committee and integrating it into the newly established Community Services Committee. Everyone has received the report and how to proceed. Pardon me?
Sorry, on page 3, there's a conclusion there. I don't believe that's correct. I don't believe that's what we actually passed.
Which page 3?
In the agenda package.
Okay, let me just get there.
It says that the SCRD board resolved to integrate the Policing and Public Safety Committee into the newly established Community Services Committee. I don't believe we did that. I believe that we said we wanted to put that on hold until we had a conversation with the committees to determine how we wanted to move forward.
Yes, the integration, I believe, and it was to, where's the...
So that's the conclusion at the bottom of page 3 in our package.
And you're thinking that that recommendation is not the right recommendation? So you're looking at oh, I'm in the wrong book. There is the SIC.
Yes, I remember that discussion.
There's attachment A.
This is attachment A, and
Page 5.
Darnell is looking at number...
Page 3.
Page 3.
Bottom, right at the bottom of the page.
That's the recommendation.
No, so attachment A had the recommendation that we were to integrate the Public Safety and the Transportation Advisory Committee into the other meetings. But at our meeting, we said no. We did not know if that would meet the need that we had. And so we wanted to come back to the committees for a conversation around that to see how we wanted to move it forward.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain, looking at attachment A, that we passed the first recommendation. It was the rest of it that we wanted to hold off. Because we knew that the system as it is wasn't working. It was the how we integrate, or, you know, who integrates, or what have you. But I'm pretty certain we passed the first recommendation.
Yes,
I'm seeing a nod over there.
So I'm looking at on the board recommendation from September 23rd, which is the one, and so you think that that recommendation is incorrect?
If I may, Chair,
Yes?
at the very beginning of the CAO's report is the resolution that was adopted by the board on September 23rd.
That's what I'm
That
reading
is
it as.
correct.
And it is the correct, so the attachment has incorrect recommendations. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to summarize a little bit here, that essentially my understanding is the board, under the direction of the chair, was to dissolve this committee and integrate it into the community services, and that we were to come to this committee to seek input on how the workings of this committee would be integrated into the new community services. That's as I understand the recommendations. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have agreement on that the September 23rd is,
Well, I've actually got the minutes of the board meeting here open. And the very first recommendation was passed. And then there was that the standing and select committee review report and the select committee's terms of reference be referred to the October 2021 Transportation Advisory Committee and Policing and Public Safety Committee meetings for information and discussion on options to provide community input at the Community Services Committee meetings or in other forums.
so my understanding of our decision here is how to take the wisdom of the committee and provide that as information for the new community services committee and how it is to be integrated. So that would be the discussion, as I understand it. Which hands are we doing? I've got,
We should do it electronically.
sure, okay. Well, we'll start with Director McMahon. Donna, thank you. Oh, I will sure bring Sherry into the
Yeah, I
room.
just wanted to comment in general that the SCRD, for historical reasons, has 4 advisory committees that are advising us in areas where we have little or no jurisdiction, and therefore we can't actually action anything coming out of the committees. And this has been problematic for quite a long time. But at the same time, we recognize the value of bringing a bunch of people to the table to discuss some of the issues facing the broader community. So we were looking for a more effective way to get the same thing done. And when it comes to policing particularly, the RCMP already go to Gibson's Council and Seashalt Council on a regular basis. And we were wondering what was the most efficient way that the RCMP could report to all the governments and maybe not have to duplicate their efforts. Thank you.
So streamline the process, make it more efficient, and get it to do something that we want. Okay, thank you. And David, you had something to say.
I think Donna covered part of it, but I think the big concern that came out of the discussion we had at the board, and it was one of the few board meetings that I've been at this year, but there's a lot of valuable information that is brought to the table in the committee, but it never gets to the board where it can be actioned. And that was, to my way of thinking, the big concern with where the committees were failing. That, you know, the discussion was held at committee, it ended up in minutes, but the minutes were such that the meat of it never really got to the board. And that's, I think, the connection that has to be made is the community input to the board.
So the benefit in the past is the community input, getting it into the board, and the time delay in that is one of the...
No, it just doesn't get to the board. It goes into the minutes of the committee, but the minutes are such, they're so Reader's Digest condensed version that the meat of the matter never gets to the board to be actioned.
Okay, thanks, David. So I'm thinking as a way to kind of, this is almost a generative discussion. We could almost do it as a roundtable and or to the question I have is, what has worked for people in the past? And what would you want to duplicate as an integration into the community services? Would a roundtable be a way to do that, or do you want to just go hand by hand? I'm particularly interested, like in Sergeant Newman having to present statistics at multiple places at different times, and it doesn't seem to be very efficient. So if we could have some kind of discussion about what worked for people in the past and what they want to carry forth, particularly the roundtable type of activity from SD 46. So if I could open up to comments from people. Oh, and Darnelda has something to say. Thank you, Darnelda.
Well, I think I was going to say something similar, like, why is School District 46 coming to this meeting? What are they hoping to get out of this? And anybody else? The RCMP, I mean, there have been a number of meetings in the last while, and I know that you've had some staffing issues, but haven't been attending the meetings. So, are the meetings being effective? And so what do we want? Like, what's the purpose of these? We all go to a lot of meetings. We just want to have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. That doesn't make any sense. And I think that we've seen that in our lack of attendance over the last while.
Hello, Sue. Sue, you have some comments.
Hi, Mark. Well, see, I'm still vibrating. I can't hear myself just talking twice.
Perhaps do the video off and give that a try.
Like that? No, so bad.
I think we were better with you with video off.
Please keep on talking.
Keep on talking, did you say? Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, so now I've got to retrace back where I'm coming from with what I was going to say. School District 46 is involved in policing and public safety. You know that I've spoken before about the importance of this committee because I have a historical background with it that goes back before even the amalgamation of the two police departments on the Sunshine Coast. I know there was a bit of history in the agenda package that explained a little bit of that, but in some respects it didn't even go back as far as we were back in the day when we had restorative justice was certainly one of the things that was a topic at the table. We haven't had representation necessarily, a lot of it from that. But right now we've got issues like speeding in school zones and things like that. So if you wonder what we get from the meetings, we get a great communication from the RCMP and a connection, and of course at the table with everyone around the table. So I hate to see it go. I hate to see it lose that space that we have created for it. And I know that when we first met after the elections, we went to talk about the policing. We used to call it community policing. That's what it was called back in the town of Gibson's days. It was Gibson's Community Policing is what the name of it was. And we established a lot, back in the day, but I know, of course, we're here now. Perhaps it would be great for us to come to the table at the Community Services Committee and have that opportunity to speak to those things. And then again, the policing and the transportation, and I know I'm getting into another committee, but this is going to affect it as well, is that they're very different flavors of committees. They address very different things, and I see a place. I still see a place for policing, all but maybe smaller, condensed, showing up at that community services committee, something like that. But I still see its importance. So I don't want to see it done away with completely, because I still think it has value. I still would like to see the community resources as, like I said, representative from restorative justice and those things. That definitely impacts on the youth and the students and the children of our community. And that is why School District 46 sits at that table, at this table. Thank you.
So Siva, the value is in the connections and sort of that informalness that allows people to connect that has been a success in the past? Hello, Sue?
Sorry. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know why I'm having so much problem with the audio today. I'm sorry. So it is the communication and the just sharing, you know, just being out there and talking about the issues in the community, and like the ones that I mentioned. Yeah, for sure.
And just some of the ideas that staff have put forth is the question is quarterly meetings and perhaps a longer delegation than what is typical, something more in the half hour where we can establish this in the committee. So it was the frequency of the meetings, quarterly is what has been talked about? Is that what you see as a good length of time between meetings?
I do. I really, yeah. I think the quarterly meetings are sufficient, definitely.
And the piece about restorative justice is this is something that's been missing in the current configuration and that was useful in the past.
Well, it was always something that the community policing, we had citizens on patrol, and we had the speed watch, and we had a restorative justice. So we had those things in the past that kind of brought us all together as a community policing group. I see it as community policing in that respect. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Darnelda, you got your hand up.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, I guess this would be a question back to Sue. So right now, the structure is that it's a SCRD committee where we have SCRD staff do up minutes that come back to the SCRD board. We have no jurisdiction to deal with any of the items that come up there. So while, yes, the round table and the connections are beneficial, I totally get that, I'm aligned with that, I don't know if it needs to be a formal SCRD committee, right? What I'm wondering if sure, we could have quarterly meetings of those parties who have issues around policing at a timeline that would work for the RCMP and school district, et cetera, because I think most of these items are RCMP actionable, not SCRD actionable. So I think the direction I'd see it going, yes, we can have meetings, but not necessarily as the current structure. And I'd like to hear from, Staff Sergeant Newman, I guess, Don, about, what he sees the benefit of these are for the RCMP. And he may not want to speak yet, but I'd like to hear from him.
No, I'll speak. Honestly, I was having audio problems too. I tried to get in before. No, I think the first thing to start with is, we're kind of a service provider, so I think you guys should really be the driver of what you guys need. It's great for us to say what works for us, but we are in a really odd last 12 months, whether it's COVID, whether it's internal staffing issues. And I would hate to set a process based on this year because I really hope this is an anomaly. So it has been a challenge to meet some of those community benchmarks when it comes to meetings, but I don't foresee that to be a long-term problem. So I wouldn't go too much on the past 6 to 9 months. And I would say 3 months, that's not a problem. Seashelt, they have a different funding formula. Gibson's likely will move into that April 1st. So there's going to be different expectations of us in what we present to them and when. I don't think quarterly is undoable for us. What I would say, though, is, and I think it was Darnelda that said this, I have no problem, Poppy had no problem, whoever follows me will have no problem, delegating or having the time spent to compile stats and present, but we do want it to be meaningful. You know, we want what we present to have a benefit, whether it's to SD 46, whether it's to the municipalities, whomever. You know, we just don't want to come in and talk for the sake of meeting the requirement for a quarterly policing meeting. Whether it's concerns and bringing us to task, accountability is important. I have no problem with that. But as long as there is a benefit being driven from it, and like SD 46, yeah, we can talk offline, and we do. Same with the District of Sechelt, Gibson's, whatnot. But I don't necessarily have a problem with the quarterly meetings. Is it too many? I mean, as Tarnelda says, we have a lot of meetings. There is no question. Once every 3 months is not undoable. What I would like to see is a standardization of the stats, and we've fallen every time we have a stats person identified, they're gone. Maybe we can look to send out stats to the town of Gibson's, the District of Sechelt, and the SCRD at the same time. That might make it easier instead of, you know, November this date I need Gibson's, this date I need Sechelt, this date's the policing committee. That might be a way to make it more efficient for us. But we do as a community, I don't want to say this is a criticism, but it's an observation. We're very, and I've lived here for 16 years, so I feel qualified to say that. This community often thinks of itself in pockets. You know, I'm from Gibson's, I'm from Roberts Creek, I'm from Sechelt, I'm from Davis Bay, I'm from Half Moon Bay. And that is great, but sometimes we lose that collective priority, and I think that's why a meeting like this is good, to bring everyone together, and it's good to get that overall perspective as opposed to just, you know, Sechelt or Gibson's. Not that that's not important, though.
So Don, you're talking about kind of right now, as you report to the member municipalities, there's an overhead in that, and so streamlining a standard set of statistics that all the local governments could agree upon is what you're thinking?
Yeah, exactly. And I've talked in the last number of months. You know, mental health is a huge part of what we do. I think it's a huge part of the community. Stats, and that's what the next stat package will involve. We're doing the next one will be for the town of Gibson's November 2nd, I believe. Yeah, I think that's important. You know, people want to know about thefts of bike and stuff like that, and, you know, thefts from auto. It's important, but it doesn't really give a great capture for me. But that's why I'm saying this has got to be a service. You know, we provide the service to you. What does the community want? What does you guys want from stats? And so, I mean, I'm open to anything. I don't think I should be driving when this meeting happens or the format of this meeting. I think that needs to be driven by you.
And the driving by the regional district is how do we make this streamlined and more efficient, I think. And so the one batch of stats delivered to the regional or the member municipalities in a standardized format could help with that efficiency.
For sure, and that's a small thing because it's still going to be about the meetings, and that's something like, you know, we pick a date, and what we say is, I don't know, maybe it's the first of the quarter, right? We send out stats to the four different governments. So, you know, that includes the Shisha Nation. So, you know, something like that, you know, April 1st, July 1st, stuff like that, or thereabouts. So, or the next Monday business day after that date. So something like that would make it easier for us. But as for the meetings, that's a different discussion. And like I said, I'm open to whatever works for everyone.
So to separate out the stats from the more collective discussion that happens.
For sure. I can still comment on the stats, or whomever is in my place can comment on the stats, but that would be one way to make it more efficient for us and make it easier. If we just produced quarterly stats, and depending on where your, you know, council meetings or policing meetings were in there, we would still use those stats, and it's not new stats for that meeting, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Anything else immediately, Dawn, or can I go to someone else?
No, go to someone else and I'll answer if there's any questions for me.
Okay. David, you're up.
Thank you, Mark. Something that Sergeant Newman referenced is what's going to be likely happening in Gibson's in the new year is in February when the census stats come out, we are probably going to be looking at policing within Gibson's. And that's going to put a slightly different complexion on things, you know, from a committee point of view, and some of the concerns that Sue addressed, which were relative to the community. will be able to be addressed within the community. They're not necessarily, they can be reported to the committee that this has been dealt, come up as an issue and has been dealt with. And there's probably, because of costs, there is probably going to be a need for greater community participation in, some of the things that Sue referred to as citizens on patrol and some of the safety groups that had previously existed in the community when we had our own detachment. So I think, some of the things we're talking about now can't really be addressed because the landscape's going to change in April.
Darnelda, you are next up.
All right, so what I'm hearing is, yes, these meetings are beneficial, not necessarily an SCRD meeting, but a community policing meeting. So it wouldn't necessarily, we could potentially provide the avenue for where it's held, but we don't necessarily need to provide resourcing behind that. That's what I'm hearing.
Who could provide that?
I think it sounds like it's more a conversation with the RCMP around how they're addressing the service on the Sunshine Coast that's being asked. So, I mean, in most cases, what we found is when we come to the meeting, it is around policing, right? So, where we have concerns, where we have issues, and that's important feedback, I think, to the RCMP. But it's for them to action then on taking those forward, not up to the SCRD to do that.
David is next up. Is anyone else, can we entice anyone else to have some comments onto this? Staff or otherwise, or other? David has his hand up. Okay, we're back to David then. Okay, go ahead, David.
Thank you, Mark. I'm just wondering if some of this might be addressed within the structure of the local government quarterly meetings that we have. So they're hosted within the different communities, but again, a lot of the information could potentially be dealt with under that umbrella. It's just a thought.
You're wondering whether the intergovernmental meetings would be a venue for this kind of community policing?
And even the transportation issues. Because again, it's the entire community. It impacts on a lot of them. It might sort of eliminate a couple of other unnecessary meetings. I'm not saying that the dialogue isn't important, but the number of meetings are onerous. And, if there can be efficiencies in condensing things under one umbrella, it might be useful.
Okay, thanks, David. Darnelda?
I don't think that's the right avenue or the right, the venue for that. What we're looking at there is government to government. It's our only opportunity to get together government to government on the Sunshine Coast to deal with cross-governmental issues. This committee I could see, or this group, I could see evolving over time depending on, like they're talking restorative justice potentially attending. There might be other, maybe the Langdale, PAC needs to attend at some point because they're talking about, policing along a stretch of highway or something, those kinds of things. I don't think that would have a place at the intergovernmental. But, I mean, it could be that if this was more widely advertised, there might be others who come along or would approach us as representatives to bring issues forward. I mean, I know one that comes up in Sechelt a lot, but we also don't wait for these meetings to bring these up with the RCMP, right? Just like I wouldn't expect the school district to wait till the quarterly meeting to bring up speeding in school zones with the RCMP. You're not going to wait. You're going to bring that up, right? So this is more long-standing community issues that we're bringing forward to see if together we can come up with some resolutions. But it's more at the community level. Government's involved because we have a role in that, but it's not just government level. Does that make sense?
I'm sort of getting the thread of what you're I was just trying to, be expeditious with trying to reduce the number of meetings. And a lot of these issues deal with the multiple governments and the resources. The school board's usually at the intergovernmental meetings, the RCMP's usually at them. Sometimes we have higher levels of government representation. So, when it gets to funding on some of these levels, the provincial input is quite often useful. So it was just a thought.
Yeah, and I think in the reports, essentially, staff have kind of said, here's a box that you can fit into, that this stuff can fit into. And then the question is, coming back to that question is, what do we want to put into that box, and what can how can it get fit into the community services box that we're creating, opposed to trying to put it into something else. This seems to be, there's capacity to do it. It's an opportunity because of the realignment of the organization. And so I think that's the synergies between the timing is right to do something, is kind of how I read the report from staff, is that the capacity resides with the Community Services Committee. And so here's a slot, take this stuff that we're doing here and put it into there somehow. That's how I'm understanding it. May I ask if GM Gagnon has had any, there's the staff report, has there been any consideration about kind of the support needed to do this work at the staff level? Are you planning this as a work plan thing, or what is staff looking for in terms of suggestions from the committee members to guide how to do this integration?
Thank you for the question. I think we're in a little bit of the timing is a little bit sensitive in that we haven't had the meeting yet in October, which I believe that the board has, that will officially bring in the committee and have set the meeting dates, et cetera, et cetera. So I think when this report was contemplated first by the CAO in response to questions around the future and the value of the committee and whether the committee was the right structure, I think it was put in a way that tried to indicate the value of the discussions and the ongoing need to have those discussions and some sort of forum to surface these things, but was a committee of the board, the SCRD board, an independent committee, is that the right venue? And so there could be an opportunity to bring it in with community services for sure, unless there's other ideas that surface that seem to make more sense, like quarterly meetings of just interested parties to talk about community safety. So I'm not sure we've really fleshed through all that. And I'm curious to, as the conversation goes on, what is the best venue and what would the SCRD need to action out of it versus community conversation?
Thank you. Donna, then Darnelda.
Sure. Well, speaking as a rural director, having an opportunity to get an update from the RCMP on any rural policing issues is certainly a valuable thing, because it may have, repercussions on decisions we're making at the board. But of course, we don't have a policing service, so we're not directly going to take action, but certainly the information is valuable. And the rural areas have their own peculiarities. Grow ops come to mind. We've got plenty of those. And people ask me questions too. So it's helpful to have the opportunity to have a dialogue I think quarterly is fine.
So it's and to separate that out from the statistics. Okay. This seems to be, the statistics don't have to follow along with the kind of the more forum type aspects. This is kind of, okay. All right, thank you. Darnelda.
So I think there's two components here. One is you know, the conversation that you just indicated, Donna, that could be a public conversation. That could be where the RCMP come to the Community Services Committee quarterly, you know, present the statistics and bring up what the issues are, and we bring the issues up so that the community knows. I mean, recently that happened with regards to West Sechelt, where they have grow-ups happening there and they want to figure out what's going on. Well, we brought it out in a public meeting, ended up in the paper and everything. So it makes it more public. They know those conversations are happening. That's one piece. The other piece, though, I think, is where we get together informally with the RCMP and the various community groups and express our concerns, ask questions. How do we move this forward? How do we move that forward? If the RCMP isn't in attendance, though, the meeting is I mean, it doesn't really go anywhere. So I think I mean, I don't know how Don will feel about this, but I would say it would be on the RCMP's agenda or their calendar to schedule it quarterly with the various groups, because if something happens that the RCMP can't make it, that meeting needs to be rescheduled. It's not on our schedule, it's on their schedule, because they're one of the critical components of that meeting. They have to be there. So I don't know if Don would be willing to take that on. Or not.
Add something to Dawn's workload?
Sorry, can I comment?
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's I mean, I guess maybe it's a bigger discussion, but I mean, accountability and communication, but I mean, is this our meeting or are we calling a community? What are we updating? Like, is this for us to give a report card? We do that in many different fashions, or is this the community and the local governments to come to us and question? I guess that's the question here, because I see it more from you to me, and you seem to see it more from me to you. And I think that's maybe a disconnect here, because I mean, I guess we could so we're doing a quarterly. So Darnell, you see it like a quarterly report card to the community? I'm not quite sure what you envision here.
I think, I'm just saying with regards to the scheduling, I think it needs to fit.
And to be clear, for the scheduling, I don't have an issue. I think that's why, and the reality is, we are, like I said, I don't want to take the last 9 months and use that as a template to create something for the future, because, like I said, let's hope it's an anomaly. But whether I schedule or you schedule, you know, something could come up. Like, I mean, we've been all working on a missing person search and rescue for the last 24 hours. So stuff like that, I have no control over. That may necessitate a postponement, but that shouldn't happen. We should always be able to work around it. The issue is there's nobody up top in our organization right now, like senior management. It's really me.
Yep.
So usually we're pretty flexible in what we can do. We're not out on the street. So that's why I think it's the anomaly that we're not there. So we should be able to commit to those meetings moving forward. We should be able to commit to a more structured plan. It's just been like an oddity the last 9 months. So let's hope it isn't.
Donna, if I may ask, does the RCMP detachment have capacity to hold hybrid Zoom meetings in a public forum?
I mean, we have a media room. I mean, now, I don't have a tech person and IT person on hand. Well, I do have people that are, I guess, fairly conversant in it, but we don't have that on hand for us. So if there was an issue, but we probably could do something like that, I think.
But it's typically not
from a Zoom standpoint, yeah.
So
I mean, maybe. Sorry, go ahead.
You think you might be able to host a meeting like this?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back again. I mean, I'm not. Is it our meeting, the host, though? That's where, for me, the disconnect is.
Right. So is this an SCRD function, really, and to provide the capacity to host these meetings?
Because are we initiating the meeting with the District of Sechelt with the Town of Gibsons, or is the District of Sechelt and the Town of Gibsons initiating the meeting when we present? I guess maybe that's where I'm caught up. So why is this different if it's a community? And then at the end of the day, the 30 minutes, the 60 minutes, the 90 minutes we meet won't change. It's just going to be a question of who owns the meeting and who organizes it.
Mm-hmm. The ownership and the minutes and all the support behind the committee.
Yeah.
Thank you. And David.
Thank you, Mark. I think to Mayor Seeger's point is, regardless of who schedules the meeting, and it seems that the regional district may be the best platform to schedule it, but in the event that, as Sergeant Newman said, things do happen, that there is the flexibility that if the police advise the RD that we can't make it today, the meeting's canceled and rescheduled. It's that simple. The essence of it is if the key player isn't at the table, there's not a lot of sense having the meeting. So, I'm quite happy with, if the RD continues to schedule the meetings quarterly, whatever, and then, something comes up last minute, it gets rescheduled if it has to happen that way. But as was pointed out, it's rather pointless having a meeting if we can't get to the meat of the subject material, so.
And if I may ask, just generally from like SD 46, and an ongoing topic here is hybrid meetings and how we do these things. We're doing this is hybrid. We're hybrid right now. We're electronic participation. And so is your participation, you would prefer in person or a little of both, or what's your sort of comfort level for how you want to participate? Because in the past, pre-COVID, we would get into a room and there was a lot of connections that happened in the room. Would they all need to be in person, or could you have, like, I'm just wondering how people are thinking how they would like to participate in person or hybrid meetings, and then the capacity of the regional district to be able to support that is better within a standing committee because the structure is already there. So if there's some comments from SD 46 perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have found that the Zoom meetings are really helpful. I mean, I loved coming out to the boardroom and interacting and participating in us all getting together for the two meetings. I think when you talk about the hybrid, I think I think both is great. A little both works well. And, we've had the benefit of seeing how this works during COVID, and it's obviously a lot easier for some people to Zoom in and take part in the meetings. So I think it's great if we can be casual about it, if we can. For me, I think it's really important to keep it simple because, and I know perhaps we had a simpler time, but I hear words, I'm hearing about managing the time and the management part of it, the administration part of it, and all of that. I think it's really important to keep it simple. It is a community-based program, and let's rely and call upon those in the community who can come forward and contribute without making it a huge big deal. I don't think it has to be.
Anything from SD 46 administration there, Paul?
I think Sue said it all. Obviously, it's great to have an opportunity to be able to share ideas and give input, and provide any further information from the schools operationally, from the district. This does work. I mean, we've seen through this great disruption that there's a lot of different ways that we can connect and have a lot more flexibility. But I know that we're looking at doing more hybrid kinds of models as well. So picking and choosing the FaceTime and seeing the benefit of that, but also being aware of the use of people's time by being able to shorten up travel, for example, by using this method. So thanks for the input.
So your ability to attend, having the flexibility or in person makes it easier for you to attend?
Absolutely.
Thanks. I have a question for staff. This is in the, you got to do this scheduling for the next year. And these decisions, so how much would staff need to know? Like, we seem to want a bunch of flexibility. Staff needs certainty in terms of doing that annual meeting. So how much certainty does staff need to know from the participants in terms of like quarterly, this type of the logistics of doing this from a corporate side?
So perhaps I could start and then I could see if GM Reed has anything to add. I think as we work through a new yet old committee, we have flexibility to add, evolve, and help create a committee that's in the best interest of the SCRD and the community. So I'm not sure we require certainty at this minute, but that's just from my limited view. So from a corporate services perspective, it might be different. So I will see if Corporate Officer Reed has anything to add.
Thank you. So I can actually speak to flexibility with respect to scheduling. So as a regional district, we're subject to rules of procedure under legislation. So provincial legislation as well as our own procedure bylaws. So there are some parameters around when we schedule, how we provide public notice. All of our meetings must be open to the public. We must provide adequate notice. There's similarly rules for canceling meetings. So all of that can be accommodated. But then further to that, we also have to plan within our work plans. So if these are regional district meetings, we have to line up IT resources to support the hybrid meeting structure. And we have to have staff to prepare agendas, circulate agendas, take minutes, and do the post-meeting follow-up. So I think that meetings set up outside of a local government structure would have way more flexibility around scheduling in particular, just because of those limitations within the legislation.
We would just have to find someone to host the meetings then, outside of local government structure. And I don't know if there's any volunteers yet. Darnelda.
Sorry, I'm still pushing in buttons and wrong mouse. Hang on. I got two mice here too, which is really interesting. I've got two devices. I've been reading over the terms of reference, right, for this committee. And right up front, it says the purpose of the Sunshine Coast Policing and Public Safety Committee is to consider issues pertaining to regional policing matters and to make recommendations to the Sunshine Coast Regional District Board on these issues. Well, we can't do anything about them, so why are we making recommendations to the board? So I think, can we have, and this would be for staff, for our staff here, can we have a committee that doesn't report to the board? Can we just have a
Get together?
get together, yeah, somehow. Like where yes, it's 4 times a year, but it's not going to report to the board. If there are items that come up that, we would have to bring them as board members to a board. Bring it up, say, we had this get together with the RCMP and community members, and this issue came up, and we want to talk about it here at the board level or at committee level. But
Can I interject really quick, Darnelda?
yeah.
I think maybe we have what if we are the leader of this community policing meeting, so that takes it out of the government structure, which the reporting, but can we then contract out, for want of a better word, whether it's the SCRD or the District of Sea Shelter, the town of Gibson's, to actually do the infrastructure for the meeting? Is that a way around that?
I don't know if it's ever been done. Don't know. Unprecedented is the phrase that's being.
Not been done here.
Pardon me?
Not been done here at the regional district.
Okay, breaking new ground, right? So I'm just going to. We've got 10 minutes here to kind of wrap these things up. And well, I'm if staff want to talk about the ability of unprecedented meetings, I don't know if they're prepared to answer the question, but sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sherry.
I was just going to suggest, so I'm in here, I'm listening, I'm learning, and I think we'll take away some of these ideas and explore them. But I don't have an answer for that today.
Thank you. And Elton.
Thanks. I think the big question is, if we're doing a meeting in a hybrid format, who's hosting the meeting? If you're doing the meeting electronically, anybody with a professional Zoom account can host the meeting. anybody, I can host one. Like, it doesn't require a government body to put it together.
What about the streaming into the public?
I mean, if it's not a government meeting,
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be
to-
streamed to the public necessarily, you know. It could be left open for the public to attend if they want. You know, anybody can host a Zoom meeting and publicize it.
Yep.
You know, the chambers do it, right? Like, it doesn't have to be, as long as we're not looking for physical infrastructure. Just a thought.
But part of this, from Dawn's point of view, is the public accountability and the public watching this. This is important from the RCMP's perspective. If you have comments, Dawn?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd be wrong I'd be in trouble if I said no. But I mean, no, of course accountability is important, but we provide that now to the district of Sechelt, like Darnelda said. Hopefully when they contact us, it's more immediate than waiting for 3 months. The same as all the other partners, Town of Gibson's, SCRD, the band, and I hope, and SD 46. I would hope that accountability still continues independent of this process. I mean, for us, we're talking about you're changing the name to community away from a policing. So there seems to be a drive amongst the partners here to maybe it's just a name change, or maybe it's a focus and a mandate change. But if the only issue is we seem to be caught up in some minutia here, I think it was Alton that said, all I'm saying, it can be a policing initiated thing, but is there a reason that, the district of Sechelt, and I'm not putting Darnell on the spot, but if it's that easy to do, I just don't want to bog down us with more non-policing activities. Now, could we be there a year from now when we get some of our support services up and running? That's possible. But for right now, I don't want to commit to something that I don't have the capacity to promise and follow through with.
So in part, you're saying you'd like to get through another year before you kind of stray from where we are?
Yeah, a year is, don't quote me on that. It could be 6 months and like I said, I've never seen in 25 years of policing what we've gone through the last 18 months, whether it's COVID or internal staffing issues. I hope it's an anomaly and not a trend. So, I'm not going to say 12 months from now. We are seeing some movement on some of our positions. So we might be in a position, and some of it's going to be a value. Is there a value from a community accountability standpoint? The answer sounds simple, yes. But if you're not getting the participation from people and there's not a benefit, then why do it? Something we can always reevaluate in 6 months or 12 months, whatever. And then maybe it does become a structured part of what we put on, independent of our Town of Gibson's, District of Sechelt. And why can't we present to the SCRD board? Why can't we do a simple 20-minute Zoom in like we do with the other levels of government? But now, apparently there's a what can you do issue. That's for you to determine, but from some of your regional issues, or just it's an email or a one-on-one call works, but we can always introduce something like that as well. But for me, I haven't come out of here with a clear picture of what it is everyone wants, I guess, is for me the end comment.
Thanks. Well, I guess we're trying to come to that in the next couple of minutes here, I think. So Darnelda?
So, I agree with what you said, Dawn, and I think I'd personally like to see the terms of reference in this committee be gone from the SCRD. And I know that I've been in touch with our HR person recently, and she's probably been in touch with you as well. We're looking to advertise for that other position very soon, which would be like a community liaison person for the RCMP. Maybe this is something that fits in that role, that's the point person for all of these various groups to connect with and say, you know what, we need, we have stuff for on an agenda, so let's get that meeting scheduled. Kind of quarterly, right? But it wouldn't necessarily have to be a rigid, okay, now it's 3 months, we have to have this meeting. But that person could maybe be the point person to pull all the various groups together to handle that. I think that's kind of what we were looking at that role to be that community liaison, which may fit in with what we're looking at doing in this transition here.
So there's some other moving pieces.
Yes.
Okay.
For sure, I agree, and like, I just can't commit because we put that grant forward in May and we really haven't moved much and it's the end of October. That's why I don't want to give a time commitment, but 6 months from now, maybe we're in a position to do that.
I'm told, I checked yesterday, and I'm told that she was in the middle of putting together the job description to have it, so she'll be working, I'm sure she'll be working with you in probably the next few days to get that together and get it out and advertised.
We'll go offline with this conversation, Darnell.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Well, and Dawn, to kind of help staff kind of synthesize what we've done, does staff need anything specific, or is this kind of a generative discussion been enough to guide staff to, as Shelley mentioned, there's going to be the final adoption of this will be coming forth in weeks to come. So is there anything that the staff needs to come out of this meeting? Thanks, Sherry. Go ahead.
It would be ideal if the committee could make a recommendation, and that way we bring it forward to the board.
Okay. Okay. So folks are going to look for a recommendation of some sort. And sorry, go ahead, Sherry.
I was just going to say, and it doesn't have to be a specific action, but just something, if there's an expectation for staff to act beyond this, to explore or research or wherever the committee is going with it, look at other options. But if in the absence of a recommendation, there'll be nothing documented in the formal minutes.
Right. So we need some kind of a recommendation. So part of the question would be, oh, sorry, Donna?
Well, I personally would be perfectly happy with quarterly police statistics on our community service agenda, and to discontinue this committee at this time.
So statistics only, and in terms of the delegation sort of forum aspect that people find benefit from this to go to community services?
Well, I was thinking of something in along the lines of a permanently open invitation to the RCMP to be a delegation at their own discretion, because they may not need to be a delegation on every quarterly occasion. But they may sometimes want to come, and we'd love to have you.
Okay, so to separate it out, quarterly for statistics, okay? To community services. And Dawn has some ideas on dates. You work on a regular calendar year, like January is your sort of beginning of your reporting period, Dawn, or?
No, in the federal government, we do stuff fiscal, so it doesn't matter, but our quarters will marry up with dates. They'll just be different numbers. So,
okay.
Yeah, just, January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, we'll go on that.
Okay, so should we do at least that piece? Okay, so anyone want to offer that as a recommendation then? I see, oh, sorry, Leonard, before we go on.
Yeah, I've been sitting listening. I'm wondering if we're going to miss something important here in our recommendation, in that we're a rural community, as opposed to, we were talking about municipal requirements. They have meetings with the municipal bodies where the municipal concerns are put forward. And I believe if a citizens group has that concern, they can make a presentation to the RCMP as well at that time. But it sounds like we're going to drop that aspect from this meeting, the way we're proceeding here. We're saying stats only. Where does the community members have a concern? We want to bring them up with the RCMP, they're rural community members. Where does that fit into this concept?
I think it'll be after this recommendation.
Another recommendation,
I
you think?
I think we're going to do stepwise, deal with the stats, and then kind of somehow do the round table, kind of the rural aspect of it.
And community groups having a say and doing presentations and that kind of thing.
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay, good. I'm good with that then. I just wanted to
Okay,
check.
all right, okay. So the first recommendation, we more or less know what that is. Quarterly statistics. And is that enough for staff in terms of quarterly? Is that close enough? Yeah, okay. We have a first mover and a seconder. Yeah, okay, all right. So we'll do that as, okay. And that the RCMP can always attend community services meetings? Okay. And we need, is that an amendment or part of the, okay. So is that motion then? We got that piece done? All clear? All right. So voting members, please, calling the question on this. All those in favor? Any opposed? 0. Great. Okay. So that works for you, Sherry. We got that piece done. And now there's this, the community aspect of it. Any ideas on a recommendation? Have you got something in mind, Sherry, that you're looking for from, in terms of this community aspect of it?
No, Chair, I do not. Maybe if the committee could just be a little more prescriptive what the intent is, and we might be able to flush something out from there.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Teen. Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. So of course, if there's any item that comes from the community or any external body, they're more than welcome to submit information that can be circulated and put on agenda as correspondence if they have any community concerns. So that can be forwarded as part of the community services agenda, just like any other community concern. Any other body, whether it's SD 46 or any other PAC, can also be a delegation to the community services. So it doesn't preclude any venue or opportunity for a venue for community concerns, rural and or more regional, to come to that particular agenda to be presented for consideration and sharing. So that's just a thought.
People from the community can always come to the committee. That's always an open offer. Yeah. Okay. And Darnelda, you had some ideas?
How about if maybe I, in my role as mayor of Seashout, liaise with the RCMP, and we come up with a strategy, that's a good word, a strategy to continue on with the community input meetings with the RCMP. And I'd request that the contact database for the members of this committee be forwarded to the RCMP, because they won't necessarily have all the contact information.
And the intent, I'm kind of...
That these meetings move forward, but not under the auspices of the SCRD. So that there still is the community input available, but we figure out what that strategy will be. And I think between Dawn and I, we could probably figure something out.
So you're offering to take this out of the regional district?
Yeah.
Okay. Have we got is that,
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all
Then I'll
right.
take this on with Dawn.
Okay, all right, and we have a seconder. All right, I wasn't ready for that one. Any further discussion on that topic?
Can I make sure Dawn's okay with that?
Yes, Dawn.
I'm not allowed to second it, am I? No.
No.
I unsecond it. No, I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right. Speaking to the motion, David or Alton?
Thank you, Mark. I was just going to say thank you, Mayor Seegers, for doing that, but perhaps we could have some engagement through the town of Gibsons with respect to how this new thing morphs into whatever it becomes. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, I think it's a wonderful idea. I think, yeah, somebody needs to take ownership of the process. You know, if it's the District of Sea Shelter or the mayor's office directly, I think it's great. You know, it does detach it from the regional district where we can't make any, you know, we can't direct the RCMP on what to do here. So let's take it away from here. You know, we've got other roundtables, other forums in the community that are, you know, grassroots, so to speak. And there's no reason this can't or shouldn't be another one. And I think it's great that the mayor wants to take that on. So,
Okay. It's a terrific offer. No, any further discussion then on that? Sue, go ahead.
Just that I'm thinking back 3 years ago when we, just after the elections, when we all met for the first time and we were talking about the policing committee. And at that time, I don't have the notes or the minutes in front of me, but I recall that we were talking about, do we abolish the group or do we change it up a bit to speak more to what we wanted that group to look like? And we then changed it from policing to policing and public safety. So I think we have to remember that component of it is the public safety. But you've already addressed that, and Tina was speaking to that that community involvement and availability to different groups to be able to come and do that. So it's more than RCMP stats. It's still the opportunity to come and have your voice heard at the table, which is really, that's really important to me. And I like to see that continue. And also, I like the ideas of maybe changing it up a bit and separating it, maybe becoming a little bit more, whatever, autonomous, whatever. But I'm a slow processor, so I really love the opportunity to ponder over that, you know, not too long, but just to think about that, what that would look like. Thanks.
I think we're all wondering what it's going to look like too. Okay, seeing no further discussion, let's see if let's call the question on the motion on the floor. All those in favor? All right. Any opposed? Totally zero. Great. Leonard, the rural aspect of it, do you think that that is captured through, as Tina suggested, that there's the delegation format, that's a venue for the rural policing issues to come to community services?
I can see how it could work. It would depend how it's described on the agenda, of course. If you just said RCMP stats, no one's going to come. But if you say opportunity to get stats and interface with the police, people will know to make their presentation. So,
Or any
or
group,
we can too.
anyone can bring that forward and carve out some time as a delegation at the meeting.
Sure. And I think depending on what's left over from what Darnell is proposing here, there would at least, I can see a way forward if there's stuff left over from that.
Thank you. And Acting CAO Perot.
Yeah, just to note that, of course, there's much correspondence that filters through. Just, you know, acting for a couple of days, there's a lot of correspondence that flows through the CAO and through the directors. And so those particular things can always be routed to the Community Services Committee as well. So it doesn't have to necessarily be an active delegation. It can also be item for correspondence, consideration, or even actioned and redirected to whatever this new grassroots committee is going to look like. So I think you're aware of the community concerns, and of course, any correspondence that comes through any staff, CAO, elected official, there's always some attention to it. So we want to make sure that we just have clarity on what venues we have to bring those attentions to surface. So obviously, they won't be ignored.
Yes. And Corporate Officer Reed, how's clarity from us?
All good, thanks.
Awesome. Okay, folks, so we're going to wrap this up unless there's any last-minute comments that someone needs to say. Silence. So
Actually, it's Don Newman.
Yes.
Just for Leonard, Leonard, just so you know, to put you somewhat at ease, I don't envision any process that we would agree on that wouldn't involve, this being a public consultation. So I wouldn't worry about the rural areas because if we're not doing it for the rural areas, we're already doing it for the municipality, so there would be no sense doing it. So this will be for the rural and the collective, so I wouldn't worry about that aspect.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Don. You've put our minds at ease, I think. So do we need a motion to adjourn? Yes, I guess we do. Firsted and seconded, and all those in favor? Thank you very much, people. It's something that I didn't think was going to happen here today, but that's great. So thanks very much.